Hello, and welcome to part three of Aspects of the Human Being. So, in this part, I'm going to talk about the spiritual aspects of the spiritual anatomy of the physical body. And I first want to begin by saying that I am restating that I am not a doctor of any kind. The information that I share with you has been shared with me through Spirit. And I have done a very, very cursory understanding of the physical body over the past 20 or so years. It is the spiritual aspect, the spiritual anatomy, the energies that I find within the body, within the different physical body parts, that to me is more interesting, because the physical body is just the end result of what has happened within that experience of that person's life. So, just like you now to, or welcome you now to, if this resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, just let it be. But I invite you now to have an open mind as I go through the spiritual aspects or the spiritual anatomy of the physical body. So, when I look at the physical body, there are four aspects, or four parts that I break it down into: the head region, the throat, upper torso, mid torso, and lower torso and root. And what I'm going to do is just cover these areas, take the head region, take each of these regions here, and talk a little bit, spend a couple of minutes on what I find is going on, some of the main things that goes on within each of these regions. So here we have the head region. Of course, that involves the brain and the skull and eyes, ears, nose, mouth, the sinuses, the cranial nerves, major arteries, major lymph veins, as well as some of many of the glands, and in particular the pituitary, the pineal, the thalamus, the hypothalamus, and I spend a lot of time in this area because this is where the entry port of the spirit body, when it sends that signal back into the physical body, this is its point of entry here, especially within the pituitary gland. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on in this section as we talk about the head region. But I spend a lot of time in this area in order to help people to relax, to find that balance. And this is where I start off doing a little bit of Reiki in this area to help them to get that to that relaxed point. So the first part that we get into here, the brain, the skull, what I find about this area, this is your protection. All of the skeletal body is about protection, as well as some other things. So from a physical point of view and its spiritual point of view, it has quite similar properties to it. But then we have this, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth. This area is, like I said, not so much the intuition, it is the collection of the way that we have that claircognizance, that all-knowing, that clairsentience, that we sense everything, the clairaudience where we hear things, and the clairvoyance where we see things. And so this particular region of the body is really good to give me an idea of, okay, what's been processed so far, what has gone right, what has gone wrong, what is still stored within this area. The next area is the sinuses, nerves, brainstem, arteries, and lymph. We have a huge lymph vein that comes across the upper part of the head here, forehead area. Your lymph system, to me, is your protection system, not only in the physical aspect, but also in the spiritual aspect. It is a very benign system, as we will go into that system later on in when we talk about illnesses. But it is another word, when I talk about it being benign, is that it doesn't have a primary emotion attached to it, okay? So the endocrine system within this area and the nervous system within this area are talking a lot about how we have rapid processing of communication of energies. which is very much needed when we take all of that energy of everything we're processing and send it to other areas of the body. So these 5 particular glands I find very interesting because over the 20 years that I've been doing this, these 5 glands have come up, and I've gotten to know them. I call them the 5 portals into spirit. So the pituitary is the portal between the spirit body and the physical body. The pineal, well, that's your library. That's everything there, your history, your memory of what has gone into making who you are, not just who you are in the present, but in the past. The thalamus, the hypothalamus, that's the spirit portal into the dream world. The hippocampus and the medulla oblongata, these two kind of work together here. The medulla oblongata, that's the portal to the soul. In wanting to find out, okay, what is going on here? What has been stored? What's the primary purpose, and all of that? And the hippocampus is just that foyer to let things go back and forth. So then moving on here, we get into the upper torso, where we have throat and esophagus, the larynx, the C7 vertebrae, the thyroid. We have the physical aspects of the skeletal body, the shoulders, ribs, the vertebrae. Then we also have the spine, spinal fluid, lungs, thymus, heart. And so this area of the chakra, I do spend a lot of time on because, actually, I spend a lot of time on a lot of different areas, but this one in particular because of the significance of what happens in this heart area. What happens as we process our life energy? How does that affect our love? How does that affect our balance? So we're going to break this down a little bit more so here and talk about the throat and the esophagus. So this area, this is the mouth region, is the beginning of your digestive system, where we take in all of this energy. But in particular, what I find a lot is a lot of issues that come up here is in this throat region, and it has to do with truth. This is your truth. And so if you have been stifled in sharing your truth, then that's going to collect and it's going to sit within the larynx. It's going to, maybe some people cause them to cough too much, or maybe have their thyroid, if they're not, or the thyroid being over and underactive. And we'll get into that when we talk about that system of the body. But when we can't express our truth, that energy gets stuck in our throat chakra, and it really is hard for us to be able to digest life and keep this area communication up quite freely. Now, the upper torso also involves the shoulders, the ribs, the thoracic part of the spine. The throat chakra, one of the things that also, again, talking about the throat chakra, is that it doesn't just stop at the throat. What I find is it goes all the way down into the arms and into the hands. That is, to me, the entire of the throat chakra, because all of that is involved in communication. Some people will talk with their hands. We write, we express, not just with our voice. And how that plays out as far as your support systems, your energetic banks. I mean, this is all coming from this physical aspect of the skeletal body. When you need energy to come in and out of life, you need this energetic bank that's stored within your skeletal body in order to get through point A to point B. Now, this is a very interesting area. We're going to touch a little bit on this because as we go through the different systems, we are really going to delve into this area. But the key things about this area is the joy of life. This is our lungs. This is our breath. This is our breath of life. And if we find that we're not enjoying life, then we're not taking in a full breath. The other interesting aspect of this area is that thymus gland. This is the master gland of our immune system. And to me, how I see it, it's like Fort Knox. If something happens to the heart, it is this energy of the thymus gland that basically signals to the body, drop everything, stop everything, survive the heart, survive the body. And we'll go into greater detail with that as we go into the next section here, which is the lower or the midsection of the body, or the abdomen area. Well, here it is. Here's the liver, pancreas, spleen, stomach, colon, small, large intestine, kidneys, adrenals, and lymph nodes. This is where we are digesting life. Now, when I begin a session with somebody, I will always, talk a little bit about what the person's going through, what the client's going through. But when I place my hand over the abdomen, that's when their higher self says, hey, this needs to be addressed. Hey, there's this emotion, or an impression or vision would come up of, oh, this is what is needing to be addressed. It may not always be what the person is needing or wanting to address, but it is the higher self. It's not me. It's what that person's higher self says, hey, we need to address this because this is top priority for us to be dealing with. So when I place my hands into this area here, I am looking at the emotion center. I'm looking at, okay, what have you digested? What have you energetically brought into these areas here? And what are you still holding on to? Also, what have you processed? And it's not just always the negative things in life that I'm looking for. There's some good things too. And sometimes we need that re-encouragement that, hey, we're doing things right. So this is what the solar plexus area is all about, is that it is that processor of emotions. That's what the solar plexus to me means. And so now that we get into, when we get into a little bit more about some of these physical aspects of this body here, we talk about the liver and the pancreas and the spleen. As much as the heart and the lungs are very important, these three organs are very, very vital. They are about balance. Balance affects these two more so than anything, but also anger, injustice, and forgiveness. The liver is constantly processing anger out of the body. The pancreas is trying to process the injustice out of the body. And the rest of the body, the spleen and the large and small intestine, they're just trying to get rid of what doesn't serve anymore within the body. So when we talk about so many people have an inflamed liver or a fatty liver, they're actually, what I see is, wow, there's a lot of anger here. There's a lot of anger, emotion, frustration, resentment that is sitting within this that is not being moved out. Okay, so and the injustice, when we can't resolve something, when we can't have a solve to an issue or an event or a situation, we're constantly trying to digest that. And so that brings in the stomach, the colon or the large intestine and the small intestine. Well, this is the food processor part of the abdomen area. So when we have these interactions where these emotions come in and we're digesting this spiritual energy, this emotion, and hopefully it's being processed, because that's what provides for that growth, that enlightenment, and we hopefully become a more balanced, a better person as a result of that. But one of the things that I notice comes up quite a bit, especially within the colon and large intestine, is the energy of integrity, questioning your integrity or having your integrity questioned. That creates some not so nice conditions like Crohn's, colitis, IBS, or irritable bowel syndrome. We need to cooperate with the yuckiness of life. Love lessons are not just positive, they are negative too. That's all about balance. And so the last part here in the lower torso is the kidneys, the adrenals, and the lymph nodes. Of the 750 lymph nodes in the body, over half of them are in this area. And as I talked about in the upper torso region, that heart area, that Fort Knox area, when our bodies go through a very stressing time, the lymph will basically dump everything that it is holding, which unfortunately right now is a lot of garbage, and it will dump it into the surrounding areas. That's going to create a lot of dis-ease, physical dis-ease within how our adrenals run, give us that jitteriness, causing us to urinate more, trying to get rid of that fear energy, which is what the kidneys are working on, is moving that area, that type of energy out. And then where does it move it through? Where does all of that garbage move through? Well, it's two areas, the bladder and the colon, especially the sigmoid part of that colon area. If that is being blocked, then we end up with infections, or we end up with different diverticulitis, all of those things that are irritating within our lives. Now, this is the creation area, whether you're male or female. This is the ovaries, prostate. This is where our creation energy, our intuition, what did we come in here to do with, and how are we going to manifest that? Oh, it's time to do this idea. That is what I look for when I focus on the reproductive area of the body. And then we have, again, more structures, more energy bank being in our being in our physical body, and so we want to look at the we want to look at what our path is in life. How are we digesting energies? How are we getting through things? How are we releasing things? When we hold on to things unprocessed, that's when we get dis-ease within our body. And so we got to look at, okay, what is the crap in life that I need to process? What is it that I need to understand, forgive, release? How is it that I can move through all of these things that restrict my movement, restrict my path, or impede my path in life? So in this area, I'm looking at the will energy. How are you moving through life? And so when we get into those creation energies, we're talking about sacred energies. We are talking about creation energies. We're talking about that hope energy, that possibilities energy. I always want to see, okay, how much hope or how much hopelessness, or are you worried about something? What are you manifesting in a negative way? Because that's what worry is about. That's what I find a lot within this lower body region, outside of self-esteem and will being impeded upon, or not quite sure about your path in life. If worry is in there, that's what you're going to attract. You're not going to be creating things, and that leads to hopelessness, the opposite of that very positive, creative, primary energy of hope. And so we get into the lower part of the body here. When we talk about the hips, the pelvic, again, we're talking about the structure. We're talking about that energetic bank, where we are drawing upon what we came into this life to get us from point A to point B. And so what I find a lot in this area and in this whole lower body area is family issues. About 80 to 90% of dis-ease has to do with family issues, and that applies to the heart chakra as well. When we have family issues, it really makes it hard to move through life lessons, but that may be part of your life path. So the ability to trust. And if that trust is broken within your family, that's going to be something that will need to be addressed. So here it is a quick little overview, and hopefully these three parts of these series, dealing with the chakras, dealing with how the spirit body, physical body, and now the spiritual anatomy, gives you a little bit more background before we get into talking about the different systems of the body and the illnesses relating to them, and providing you with some sort of tool to help you to move through all of these energies. Once again, I'm not a doctor. This is just information that I have downloaded over the past 22 years. And I am sharing this with you. If it resonates with you, fantastic. If it can help you in some way, that is great. That is certainly the hope that I have, that you will take from this what you need to take from this, and grow and be that person that you are. Be that being that you are, a being of love. And so I'd like to conclude now by once again stating many blessings of love to you all.